Have you ever sat in silence, wondering why the people you loved the most were the ones who hurt you the deepest? You gave them kindness. You showed up when they didn't deserve it. You held space for them, forgave them, trusted them, and in return they left you in pieces. No warning, no closure, just silence. And now you're sitting there wondering, did they ever care at all? You watch them post their perfect life, smiling in every photo, laughing with new people. From the outside, it looks like they've moved on, untouched, unbothered, unpunished. And meanwhile, you're the one waking up with heaviness in your chest. You're the one replaying the conversations, questioning your worth, wondering how love could feel so much like betrayal. But I need you to hear this. God is not blind to what was done to you. When someone breaks a heart that only ever meant well, they don't walk away freely, no matter what the outside shows. Because what you're not seeing is this: their peace is already crumbling. Not in front of the world, not in the pictures, but in the silence, in the spaces where the noise fades and the mind speaks louder than the mask. Because here's what most people never talk about. Guilt is quiet, but it's relentless. You see, the human soul was never designed to thrive on dishonor. You can pretend, you can distract yourself, you can even convince everyone else that what you did wasn't that deep. But deep down, the conscience always collects its debt. And when someone wounds a pure heart, someone who showed up with real love, real loyalty, real intention, they touch something sacred. They don't just wrong a person, they interrupt divine order. And the soul knows it. At first, it won't look like anything's happening. They'll still go out with friends, still laugh, still post selfies and song lyrics as if nothing happened. But there comes a moment, and it always comes when they can't outrun the quiet. They'll be lying in bed one night and a memory will flash. A word they said, a look on your face, a moment they thought they forgot, and for a split second, the illusion cracks. That's when the mind starts whispering, you were wrong. You hurt someone real. You lost something rare. And no matter how many times they try to shut it down, that whisper gets louder. It shows up when they least expect it, in a movie scene, in a random song, in someone who smiles like you did. And they feel it. That ache, that tug. They may not name it guilt. They may call it stress, anxiety, restlessness. But their soul knows exactly what it island. It's the truth knocking on the door they slammed shut. And here's what most people miss. God doesn't need to punish people with lightning bolts. He just lets their peace unravel. Because when you're not right with the truth, peace becomes impossible. No matter how beautiful your life looks on the outside, if your inside is filled with unresolved conviction, you won't be able to rest. They start becoming irritated for no reason. Joy loses its color. The things that once made them feel alive now feel hollow. They can't sit still because stillness brings silence and silence brings truth. And the most dangerous thing about conviction, you can't outrun it. You can't outdrink it. You can't even out-succeed it. You can build a whole empire, but if you did it by stepping over someone who only wanted your good, you will never enjoy the fruit of it. That's not karma. That's divine justice. When someone breaks your heart and walks away like it never mattered, they think they're free. But they're not free. They're haunted. Haunted by what they lost. Haunted by the version of themselves they became to hurt you. Haunted by the fact that they knew better and still chose wrong. And the weight of that doesn't lift. It lingers in their nervous system. It clouds their mornings. It robs them of their ability to be fully present. They start feeling like something is missing but can't name what it island. That's because they lost the peace that comes from walking in truth. I want you to know something deep. You didn't lose. You were released. And the person who wronged you isn't winning. They're just delaying the moment they'll have to face themselves. And that moment always comes. So while you're sitting here crying over someone who disrespected the most sacred parts of you, just know they are not at peace. And they may never tell you. They may never apologize. But they are already being confronted by the weight of their choices. And God, the divine, the source, the universe, doesn't need your revenge. He just needs your surrender. Because when you surrender what was done to you, you're saying, I trust that truth always wins. I believe that love is never wasted. I know that peace belongs to the pure-hearted, and that is when your healing begins. So stop checking if they regret it. Stop chasing closure from someone who wasn't even honest while they were in your life. Because what they lost isn't just you, it's access to peace. And what you gain if you stay the course is clarity, confidence, and the quiet power of knowing you didn't become like them to survive them. You stayed true. And in a world full of broken loyalty that makes you rare, that makes you chosen, that makes you free, reflective question. What would change in your life if you stopped needing closure from those who broke you and started trusting that their conscience will give them the justice you never could? If this message resonates with you, I'd love for you to like, comment your story below, and subscribe for more weekly insights. Thank you for being part of this journey. Let's keep walking it together. Have you ever looked around and wondered why the people who once had it all suddenly can't seem to catch a break? I'm talking about the ones who walked away from you like you meant nothing. The ones who mistook your presence as permanent. The ones who misused your loyalty and thought they'd still flourish after they left you behind. At first, it looks like they're doing fine. They've moved on, they're still posting, they're still working, they're still getting likes, going to parties, booking trips, getting praise. And you ask yourself, did I really not matter? You start to wonder, where's the justice? Where's the rebalancing? Does God not see what they did? Does the universe not keep score? But here's what most people don't realize, and I want you to write this on your heart. Every blessing you're connected to comes with a source. And when someone mistreats the vessel, they forfeit the flow. Let me explain. When you are favored, when your life carries spiritual alignment, purity of heart, and integrity, you don't walk alone. You walk with covering. You walk with grace. You walk with doors that open, not because you forced them, but because they were assigned to you. And when someone chooses to betray that, to harm that, to sabotage that, they're not just hurting a person. They're interrupting divine flow. They're stepping out from under the umbrella and wondering why the storm is soaking them. At first, the shift is invisible. It looks like everything's the same. Opportunities still appear, plans are still moving, people still answer the phone, the system seems intact, but slowly and always suddenly doors start to close. The phone calls stop coming. The job that once felt secure gets shaky. The friendships that were once strong start to thin out, and they don't understand why. They think it's just a bad week. They think it's the economy. They think it's someone else's fault. But you and I both know it's not randomness, it's redirection. You see, favor doesn't follow betrayal. God does not bless manipulation. The universe doesn't expand through deception. And grace cannot coexist with ego. When they stepped out of alignment by hurting someone, chosen someone who held them, helped them, and only wished them well, they cut off the very current that once carried them forward. It's like this. Have you ever seen a plant thrive simply because it's near the sunlight? Now imagine that plant removes itself from the sun voluntarily. It doesn't die immediately. It still has some reserves. It still has water in the soil. But give it time and you'll start to see the leaves droop, the color fade, the roots weaken. That's what happens when someone walks away from divine alignment. The glow fades, the ease evaporates, the energy drains. They used to be able to get in rooms just by showing up. Now every door feels locked. They used to feel momentum behind them. Now everything feels like pushing uphill. They used to be celebrated. Now they feel forgotten. Because here's the truth that no one wants to admit. Access to favor is not guaranteed. It's stewarded. And when it's abused, it's removed. And listen, this isn't about wishing them harm. This is not about revenge. This is about reality. Just like a river flows where there is least resistance, blessings flow where there is most alignment. If you mistreat what was pure, if you disrespect what was sacred, you don't get to keep reaping the rewards. And the deeper pain they'll feel isn't just about closed doors. It's about the realization of what they lost access to. Your loyalty, your prayers, your consistency, your softness, your wisdom, your energy. All of that was an extension of divine generosity, and they treated it like it was ordinary. You were the open door, and now that door is closed, and don't be surprised if they come knocking later. They might try to reconnect. They might try to slide back in. They might suddenly remember how valuable you were. But just because they realize it late doesn't mean they deserve a second key. Sometimes the greatest act of divine justice is letting them see what they gave up from the outside. And here's the most beautiful part. While doors are closing for them, doors are opening for you. You stayed honest. You stayed grounded. You didn't retaliate, didn't match their energy, didn't let betrayal poison your heart. And because of that, your path is expanding. You're walking into rooms you once prayed for. You're connecting with people who see your light. You're being placed in positions that require the kind of character only pain can cultivate, and they'll see it. They'll see the glow. They'll see the success. They'll see the peace, the kind that can't be faked, bought, or rushed, and it will shake them. Because when someone who thought they left you behind watches you walk into blessings they can no longer reach, that's when the real lesson lands. You see, some people weren't meant to walk your whole journey. They were only meant to teach you what alignment is not. They were the red light that forced you to pause. They were the detour that led you to destiny. And that's okay. You don't need to chase, prove, or fix anything. You don't need to make them see your value. They already know. They just didn't honor it. And now they're living in the echo of that decision. So stop staring at the closed door. God shut it for a reason. He saw what you couldn't. He heard what they said when you weren't in the room. He knows what you deserve. And sometimes protection looks like rejection. Sometimes promotion comes through pain. Sometimes favor flows most freely after a betrayal cuts the cord. You are not where you are by accident. You are not being overlooked. You are being reserved. You are not behind. You are being aligned. So trust this season. Keep your heart open. Keep your spirit clean. Keep walking through the doors that open effortlessly, the ones that don't require you to shrink, chase, or beg. Because that's where your next chapter lives. And the ones who didn't value you, they'll be watching from behind the doors. They closed on themselves. Have you ever felt like you gave someone your heart and they gave you a scar in return? You gave them love. You gave them access. You gave them the benefit of the doubt. You lowered your walls. You opened your soul. And they didn't just walk away. They walked all over you. And now you're left sitting in the aftermath, wondering why people who do wrong seem to thrive while you're the one crying yourself to sleep. But here's the thing I need you to know, and I say this with all the love and truth I can give you. You don't need to avenge yourself, because the struggle they tried to put on your shoulders is now sitting on theirs. At first, it won't look like anything's changed. They still smile, still show up like nothing happened, still act like what they did to you was just a phase, something light they barely remember. But life has a memory, the spirit has a memory, the universe has a memory, and everything we sow, we eventually reap. See, struggle doesn't always arrive as punishment. Sometimes struggle is a mirror. It reflects who we are becoming. It reflects what we've ignored. It reflects what we've inflicted on others. When someone chooses to harm a heart that meant no harm, when they betray someone who only wanted peace, growth, connection, they don't just create distance. They plant a seed, and that seed grows. It might not sprout right away. It might not be visible in the first week, but give it time, and you'll start to see the shadows forming around their life. At first, it's small. They miss deadlines. They lose focus. They feel unusually anxious, like something's off, but they can't explain what. Then their relationships start to shift. People who used to support them become distant. Projects stall. Things don't flow the way they used to. The momentum they once had now feels forced. The clarity they used to walk in has turned to fog. And here's what's powerful. They don't even realize it's connected because pride blinds us. It tells us this is just bad luck. This is just life being unfair. This is someone else's fault. But deep down, in the quiet moments when no one is around, the thought creeps in. What if this is because of what I did? What if this is connected to the way I treated them? What if I'm struggling now because I left someone else to struggle before? And let me be clear, you didn't wish this on them. You didn't pray for this to happen. You simply let go. You released what was never yours to fix. And God, the universe, took over. Because when you hurt someone who was there for you, when you lie to someone who trusted you, when you betray someone who would have carried the world for you, you don't just break their heart. You set yourself on a path filled with friction, not out of vengeance, but out of correction, not out of bitterness, but out of balance. not out of rage, but out of divine design. Because life doesn't just hand us rewards, it hands us reflections. And when you mistreat someone aligned with love, with purpose, with integrity, the reflection that comes back will eventually expose what was done in the dark. I want you to picture this like energetic strings. Every action, every choice, every betrayal, it's a string we tie to our future. If you tie that string with grace, with truth, with accountability, it holds. But if you tie it with dishonesty, deception, and selfishness, it unravels. It creates tension in every step forward. That's why no matter how much they try, they feel blocked, they feel heavy, they feel like they're walking in circles. You've seen it happen. They start to get short-tempered. They're irritable for no reason. They snap at others. They complain constantly about how nothing is working out anymore. But the truth is, nothing is working because they didn't work on themselves. They left your life thinking they were moving on, but they didn't realize they were carrying the weight of their unhealed behavior. They didn't realize that struggle begins not when life resists you, but when your spirit is misaligned. And maybe they can fake it in front of the world. Maybe they can keep up appearances. But the internal war always surfaces. It surfaces in sleepless nights, in waking up tired, in chasing pleasure that no longer satisfies, in having everything but feeling like something is missing. And the worst part, they know exactly what's missing. It's not just you. It's the peace they had when you were there. It's the grace they received because they were connected to your energy. It's the balance that came from standing beside someone who's rooted in truth. Now, all of that is gone. And you're rising. You're no longer waiting for them to apologize. You're no longer holding space for someone who only filled it with lies. You're no longer pouring into a connection that was one-sided. You've stepped into your healing. You've chosen wholeness. You've stopped chasing people and started chasing purpose. And while they're surrounded by struggle, struggling to find peace, struggling to find meaning, struggling to find themselves, you are being surrounded by clarity, by divine protection, by new opportunities, by people who value what they didn't. So please, don't spend another second wondering if they're facing consequences. Don't waste your energy stalking their page, decoding their silence, or questioning your worth based on their actions. Their struggle is not your story. Their dysfunction is not your responsibility. And their confusion is not your closure. Because the moment you stop begging for reciprocity, the moment you stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, the moment you chose to heal instead of hate, was the moment the cycle broke. So let them face their storm. Let them wrestle with their conscience. Let them sit in the silence they created. Because struggles have a purpose too. They humble the arrogant. They awaken the blind. They teach what words never could. And trust me, God does not forget what was done to his children. Not to punish, but to restore. So keep rising. Keep forgiving for your own peace. Keep healing for your own future. Keep shining because darkness always exposes itself in the presence of light. And you, my friend, are the light they never thought they'd lose until it was too late. We don't realize how much we carry until someone mishandles what we were never supposed to beg them to cherish. You ever look back and realize how deeply someone underestimated you? Not just what you look like, not just your talents, but your heart, your loyalty, your ability to forgive again and again, even when it hurt. They saw how consistent you were and confused it with availability. They thought your kindness meant weakness. They thought your presence was permanent. They assumed you'd always be there no matter how little they gave in return. But here's the raw truth. Every blessing has a limit. Not because you became bitter, not because you wanted revenge, but because love, when it's not honored, eventually withdraws. And that's exactly what's happening to them now. They're losing what they took for granted. At first, it doesn't feel like loss to them. They walk away proud, confident, convinced they made the right call. They surround themselves with distractions, new people, new relationships, new goals. They chase novelty. They drown in noise. They pretend you didn't matter. And maybe they even say it out loud, I'm better off. They weren't all that. I had to do what's best for me. But time Time has a way of revealing what the ego tries to cover up. Little by little, the illusion starts to crack. The people they thought would fill your shoes fall short. The conversations they're having now don't go deep, they skim the surface. The warmth, the comfort, the energy you used to bring into their world, gone. And it hits them not in loud ways, but in quiet moments. Moments like sitting in a room full of people and still feeling alone, laughing but not feeling joy, achieving something but wishing they had someone real to share it with. Because the truth is, you weren't replaceable. They may try to recreate what you gave. They may try to copy the piece you carried. But what you brought into their life wasn't something you bought, it was something you became. You became their safe place. You became their biggest fan. You became the one they called when life got too loud. And now that safe place is locked. That phone number doesn't feel familiar. That energy they once ignored, they're craving now. But here's the thing, they didn't lose you the day you walked away. They lost you the day they stopped valuing what they had. And now that loss is showing up everywhere. The job that once felt exciting feels empty. The people they ran to can't hold the emotional space you used to offer freely. The routines they built their identity on are breaking down. Because when you mistreat a sacred connection, you don't just lose a person, you lose what that person activated in your life. And you were more than someone who showed up. You were a mirror. You were a reminder of who they could have become if they had just grown with you. You were an anchor in the storm. You were a rare frequency in a world full of noise. And now that frequency is gone. They can scroll through their contacts. They can search their messages. They can try to recreate the vibe with someone new, but nothing fits because you weren't just a chapter in their life, you were a plot twist. And now that you've closed your page, their story doesn't read the same. Let's go deeper. What they lost wasn't just emotional support, it was divine access. When you're connected to someone walking in alignment, walking in favor, walking in healing, you benefit from that energy even if you don't realize it. You sleep better. You make better decisions. You move with clarity. You feel secure in ways you can't explain. But when you abuse that access, when you think it's guaranteed instead of gifted, it disappears. And the absence of that energy, it's loud. It echoes through their days. It shows up in their restlessness, in their confusion, in the way everything now feels off. And they'll try to deny it at first. They'll say, I'm fine. They'll post more, talk louder, work harder, all to prove they're unaffected. But behind closed doors, they're feeling the loss. They're seeing the pattern. They're realizing the love they once dismissed is love they may never find again. The trust they broke is trust they won't get back. The soul connection they neglected was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And by the time they realize it, you've grown, you've evolved, you've stepped into your season. You're no longer waiting for an apology that may never come. You're no longer defining your worth through someone else's confusion. You're no longer asking, why wasn't I enough? Because now you know you were more than enough. They just weren't ready to receive it. And their loss, it's not just losing you. It's losing the version of themselves they could have become by doing life with you. So when they look back, and they won't just miss your presence. They'll miss their own potential. And that is the kind of loss no material thing can replace. So don't look back. Don't soften your boundaries for someone who didn't honor your softness. Don't reopen a door just because they finally realized what was behind it. If they couldn't respect you when they had access to you, they don't deserve proximity now that you've elevated. Because you didn't become this powerful by accident, you became this powerful by surviving what tried to break you. And now you are the loss. You are the what if. You are the one that got away. You are the lesson they had to learn the hard way. So stand tall, walk proud, and let them feel the absence of what they thought would never leave. Because sometimes the greatest justice isn't in watching them suffer. It's in knowing that your love, the love they took for granted, was priceless. And now it's no longer for sale. There's something undeniably powerful about becoming everything they never believed you could be. There's something divine about healing in silence while they expect you to stay broken. And there's something poetic about rising, not to prove them wrong, but to finally live right by yourself. You see, when someone walks away thinking you'll fall apart, when they choose to betray you and expect you to be the one drowning in regret, um, when they leave assuming you'll be stuck watching them move on, they never consider the possibility that you were the blessing all along. They forget that the one who prays for others walks with divine strength, that the one who forgives quietly is building resilience beyond imagination, that the one who loved purely cannot be replaced, only remembered. And now the tables are turning, not because you sought revenge, not because you fought fire with fire, but because you chose healing over hatred. You chose to rise instead of remain. And while they were busy crafting their next mask, you were building your next level. You were investing in your growth. You were reclaiming your worth. You were discovering your voice. And you were learning that your life never needed their approval to be powerful. Here's what's happening now, and I want you to own this fully. They're watching you rise. Maybe they won't say it. Maybe they'll act like they don't care. Maybe they'll scroll past your photos, hear your name in conversations, see your energy glowing in every room you enter, and act indifferent. But deep down, they feel it, they see it, and it shakes them. Because the version of you they expected to collapse has become a force they can't ignore. You are no longer the one begging for their time. You are no longer available for breadcrumbs. You are no longer hoping they come around. You are evolving, and you're doing it unapologetically. You're no longer looking back, you're focused forward. You're not searching for closure, you're creating completion within. You're not competing with anyone, you're becoming everything. Your soul always knew you could be. And let's be clear, this isn't just about success. It's about peace. It's about alignment. It's about walking into rooms and knowing who you are with no need to shrink. It's about waking up with clarity, breathing without anxiety, loving without fear, laughing fully, sleeping deeply, living presently. All the things they thought you'd never experience without them, you're experiencing now and more. And they're watching. They see your confidence. They see the glow they once dimmed now shining brighter than ever. They see your name being spoken with respect. They see your presence commanding attention. And it hits them. They start to compare. They start to rewind the past. They start to reevaluate the version of you they once dismissed. Because while they were counting on you staying broken, God was busy rebuilding you into something even they can't comprehend. And here's what you need to understand. Your rise is not about revenge. Your rise is not a performance. Your rise is a response to everything that tried to convince you that you weren't enough. It's a response to the pain you carried without lashing out, to the lies they told that you outlived, to the abandonment you survived, to the identity you had to reconstruct after they tried to strip it away. You didn't just get up. You leveled up. You didn't just move on. You moved higher. You didn't just heal. You became whole. And now the access they once took for granted is gone. That backstage pass to your life, revoked. That seat at your table, replaced by people who recognize your value. That role they casually abandoned, filled by someone who doesn't fumble, rare energy. And they're realizing something they never saw clearly before. You weren't just part of their past. You were the best part. And here's where the real shift happens. They start feeling small in comparison. Not because you're trying to make them feel less, but because your growth reveals how little they grew. Your maturity magnifies their emotional immaturity. Your consistency exposes their instability. Your authenticity confronts their manipulation because you didn't have to destroy anyone to win. You didn't gossip. You didn't slander. You didn't chase closure through chaos. You just stayed the course. You just kept becoming. And now they're realizing you didn't need them to be great. You just needed to release them to rise. Let me say that again. For the version of you that still occasionally looks back, you didn't need them to be great. You just needed to let them go. And now that you've let go, really let go, life is responding in your favor. Opportunities that align with your values are finding you. People who speak your language are entering your orbit. Love, real love, is starting to feel possible again. Not because someone else came to save you, but because you finally saved yourself. So the next time someone from your past tries to re enter your world, not because they love you, but because they miss the light you carried, pause it. And remember, you are not the same person. You are not at the same level. You are not accessible in the same way. Because when you rise the right way through truth, healing, and discipline, you don't need revenge. Your life becomes the evidence. And the most powerful kind of elevation is the kind they can see, but can no longer reach. There's a certain silence that speaks louder than any scream. It creeps in at 2 a.m. when the world is quiet and the lights are off. No music, no crowds, no scrolling, no distractions. Just the echo of choices made and the realization of what can't be undone. You see, we live in a world where people believe they can escape truth if they just keep moving fast enough. Hurt someone and jump to the next thing. Lie, betray, ghost, gaslight, and bury it under busyness. But let me tell you something from a place of truth, experience, and spiritual clarity. No one escapes their conscience. No matter how far they run, no matter how loud their life gets, the mind has a memory and the soul keeps the score. They can pretend, they can smile, they can post quotes about healing and growth. They can even convince everyone else they're doing amazing. But when they close their eyes at night, that's when it hits. That's when the movie starts playing. That's when the truth walks back into the room and they feel it. They feel the moment they said too little or way too much. They feel the last conversation, the look in your eyes, the tone in your voice. They remember what they did, how they said it, and how fast they walked away from someone who would have stood by them through anything. They can rewrite the story to others, but they can't rewrite the feeling that lingers in their chest. Because the soul never forgets when it's acted out of alignment. And when someone hurts a heart that was loyal, patient, forgiving, and pure, that damage doesn't just travel one way. There's a boomerang effect to betrayal. You throw harm out into the world, and eventually it circles back, not through punishment, but through presence. The presence of guilt, the presence of regret, the presence of what they once had and will never have again. And the worst part, they can't talk about it. They can't bring it up to their new circle. It would break the illusion. They can't confess it at work. It would expose their emotional instability. They can't speak it to family. They've already framed themselves as the victim. So they suffer silently, smiling in public, spiraling in private. And while you've been doing the hard, sacred work of healing, they've been doing the dangerous work of pretending. They pretend you didn't matter. They pretend it wasn't that deep. They pretend they had no choice. But guilt has a way of slipping through the cracks in the story. Maybe it's a scent, a street you used to walk together, a show you watched on slow Sunday afternoons. Maybe it's a lyric, a line, a laugh, something that sounds like you. And suddenly, for a few seconds, the weight drops. And they realize they can't outrun what they refuse to repair. They can't unfeel what they once tried to numb. They can't unknow the truth. They tried to silence, because here's the divine design of conscience. It doesn't need a courtroom to hold you accountable. It builds a cell inside your mind and locks you in with the memory of what you did. You don't need to wish karma on them. You don't need to hope they get what they deserve, because they already are. They're living with the realization that the person they hurt was the same person who would have done anything to protect them. They're replaying the ways they were loved. The way you stayed when you could have left. The way you forgave when they didn't even apologize. The way you tried again and again to hold space for someone who kept disappearing. And now they're haunted by everything they thought they could walk away from. And maybe, just maybe, they reach for their phone. They think about messaging you. They type out the apology. They hover over send, but they don't press it, because ego is a prison too. And the pride that let them break your heart is now the same pride keeping them from facing it. So they say nothing, but their silence is loud. Their absence is loud. And their conscience, it's screaming. Meanwhile, look at you. You're not bitter. You're not waiting. You're not hoping for them to fall. You're rising. You're healing. You're rebuilding a version of yourself that doesn't need validation from those who couldn't value you. And here's the miracle. You found peace while they can't sleep. You've forgiven them while they can't forget you. You've let go while they're clinging to shadows of what once was. You don't need revenge. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to say your name with remorse. Because the justice is already written in their restless nights, in their irritable mornings, in the emptiness they feel but can't explain. They thought peace came from success. They thought joy could be found in distraction. They thought guilt could be outrun by new relationships, new cities, new habits. But the soul doesn't work like that. You can't fake alignment. You can't fast forward healing. And you absolutely cannot delete someone whose spirit touched you on a level you never understood until it was gone. So, no, you may never get the closure, but you've already got the clarity. You may never get the apology, but you've already received the elevation. And while they battle the weight of their own guilt, you walk freely, light, present, whole, because you were never meant to carry their shame. That was never yours to hold. So bless them, release them, and rise anyway. Because conscience has a perfect memory even when people don't. There comes a moment in your life when the pain no longer defines you. A moment when the scars no longer sting, because they become symbols of strength. Because you've outgrown what tried to break you. Because you've risen higher than the hands that dropped you. And if you're walking through that moment right now, let me say this clearly. God didn't just restore you, He elevated you. And not just a little, not just enough to survive, but beyond reach, beyond access, beyond the place where those who once hurt you can even follow. You see, we often mistake separation as rejection. We think when people leave, it means we weren't worthy. We think when someone breaks our heart, it means we were too much, too soft, too easy to leave. But what if the separation was preparation? What if the silence was strategy? What if the betrayal was the very thing God used to lift you into the life you were always meant to live? Because here's the sacred truth. Some people had to leave your life so they wouldn't contaminate your destiny. They had access to a version of you that was still building, still bending, still learning to love without boundaries, still carrying the weight of others while neglecting your own worth. But that version of you, that version no longer exists. The version of you today is rooted, healed, clear, evolved, and that evolution is what they can no longer access. It's not punishment, it's not revenge, it's protection. God removed them not to hurt you, but to preserve you, to preserve the peace that was being drained, to preserve the confidence that was being chipped away, to preserve the calling that they would have distracted you from. And now the elevation has begun, not just externally, but internally. You know, you're not just stepping into new rooms, you're walking into them with a different energy, unapologetic, present, aligned. You're no longer over-explaining your worth. You're no longer waiting for someone to come around. You're no longer settling for half love from half-healed people. You've become what they never expected, whole without them. And what they feared the most is now unfolding. They thought you'd stay the same. They thought you'd need them to succeed. They thought you would break without their validation. But now they have to watch you rise into your power, watch you step into joy, watch you become everything they couldn't see when you were standing right in front of them, and they can't follow, they can't get close, they can't go where you're going, because this new level of your life requires a different environment, a different frequency, a different circle, one that matches your growth, not your wounds. Think about it. Would you let someone back in who couldn't hold your light the first time around? Would you reopen a door to someone who fumbled your love like it was disposable? Because growth teaches you one sacred boundary. Not everyone deserves a second chance at what they mishandled the first time. Let's go deeper. Elevation doesn't just mean promotion in career or status. It means freedom. Freedom from overthinking, freedom from emotional chaos, freedom from needing someone's presence to feel complete. It means you finally see the beauty in being misunderstood because not being seen correctly by the wrong people set the stage for you to see yourself clearly. And as you elevate, they feel it, not in your words, but in your absence, not in confrontation, but in your peace, not because you tried to prove anything, but because you became everything they thought you never would. They see you glowing, thriving, healing, loving again, this time with discernment. And it hurts them not because they wish you harm, but because deep down, they know they had access to something sacred and they lost it. They didn't just lose a partner, a friend, a support system. They lost their window into wholeness, into real love, into a version of life built on truth instead of illusion. And now they get front row seats to your elevation, but no invitation backstage. They get to see what you've become, but they don't get to be part of it. And that is divine justice at its purest, because God doesn't clap back. Elevates. He doesn't need to shout. He shines. And the greatest way he avenges your pain is by writing a future for you that makes their absence feel like mercy. That's right, mercy. Because if they had stayed, they would have sabotaged your growth, dimmed your light, delayed your purpose, convinced you to settle. But now, there's no more delay, no more confusion, no more waiting for someone to choose you. You chose yourself. And in doing so, God chose to elevate you. So if you ever doubt whether you're doing the right thing, if you ever feel tempted to look back, to second guess, to soften your standards out of nostalgia, just remember this: elevation doesn't come with backward invitations. It requires clean hands, a clear mind, and a heart that's finally learned how to beat without breaking for people who never deserved your pulse in the first place. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the realization that the version of you they once had access to will never exist again. And you just keep rising, because when God puts his hand on your life, no person, no betrayal, no rejection can block what's already written in your name and what's coming for you. It's not just success. It's peace that can't be shaken, purpose that can't be stolen, love that doesn't require shrinking. It's elevation beyond reach and exactly where you were always meant to be.